Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 103rd Societas Koreana lecture meeting, proudly hosted by the Academy of Korean Studies. My name is Moon-kyung Kim, and I'm honored to serve as your MC this evening. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Anna Yates-Lu, as an associate professor of ethnomusicology. At Seoul National University, she is actively involved in nurturing the next generation of scholars and artists. She earned her PhD from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Her research focuses on Panzori, Korea's traditional musical storytelling, and how it continues to evolve today. Through her work, she continues to build bridges between Korea's cultural past and its dynamic present. In addition to her academic work, Dr. Yates-Lu is also a seasoned performer. She trained under Master Singer Min Hae-sung, a designated holder of National Intangible Cultural Heritage. In 2023, she was recognized by Korea's Ministry of Culture for her outstanding contributions to cultural exchange. This evening, she will guide us into Panzori's rich and expressive world. Ladies and gentlemen, please greet her with a warm round of applause.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I am incredibly honored to be able to be here today. I've always heard a lot about this lecture series, so I'm really, really glad to be part of it. Yes, so what we are going to be doing today is I will be introducing Pansori. I'll also be doing some singing as I go, just to help demonstrate what I'm doing. For that, I have also brought in the help. This is Kim In-soo, who is my drummer this evening. He's a member of the National Korean Orchestra here in Korea, and I'm very, very honored that he is able to support me today. Now, that being said, I will get started first of all to introduce you a little bit to what is a Panzori. We'll get a little bit of a starting idea first, and then I'll demonstrate as we go. Now, usually you hear various glosses for that. Shall I stand here, down here, so you guys can see? Is that, you're fine? Yeah? Okay, so you hear it called various things. One-man opera is a term that is used. I could go into depth as to why I think maybe opera can be more confusing and is helpful. Personally, I prefer using the term musical storytelling through song, because the focus in the end is about telling stories. We want to transmit stories. These are, in general, 5 folk tales are the traditional repertoire that are very well known in Korea, at least in the broad brushstrokes, although the stories are incredibly detailed once you get into them, and I'll go into that in a minute. So usually when we talk about Pansori, we talk of 2 performers on the stage, the singer, in this case this will be me, the sorikun, and then the drummer, who is the gosu. That's all there is in terms of musical accompaniment. It's just a drummer. And then there are 3 elements that I, as the singer, will use to tell the story. So the first one is sori. Now, sori, you can see it's in Pansori as well. This sori, it means song, usually when we're talking about it, the sung elements. But in fact, sori itself means a variety of different things. It's closer to sound in meaning. So yes, the singer sings, but they will also use their voice to provide sound effects to retain interest as you go. So, you know, you might have a bird flying by, you know, soku, soku, or the wind going, and these kind of things. So various sounds of nature also included in Pansori description. Now the second element that you have is aniri. Now aniri is narration. If it was just singing, one full Panzori performance can be anywhere from 3 to 8 hours long. Just singing would get a bit much, on the one hand, for the listening audience. Also, from the perspective of the singer, that is really hard to do. So in order to get your breath back, freshen everyone up, there are moments in between where narration will take place. Dropping out of the singing. And this part can be a lot more acting related as well. You might see interaction between different characters. And then the final point is palim. Now, palim are gestures. They are done usually with a fan as the main prop. Sometimes singers will also have a handkerchief. And so a fan can be many things. It could be a book that you're reading, could be a saw that is cutting something, an arrow that's shooting, all these kind of things you can do with a fan. So you have theatrical gestures. You also have rhythmic gestures. So often you'll see at the end of a musical phrase, one hand or the other hand or both hands with a fan open or closed will be done just when you hit the end of a musical phrase, and that adds a little rhythmic emphasis in terms of gesture as well. Now, just to talk about the etymology of Pansori, in fact, Pansori is quite a recent term for this. It's only really once other kinds of singing started to emerge that you needed to distinguish. It used to just be called tang, which means song. These days we now use this term Pansori. Pan designating the origins of the genre. It was traditionally sung in marketplaces. So this sort of the pan as an open space. But it also means an event. And so when you are telling a story, you are opening the world of this story to it. So those two meanings included. And sori then, as I said, both song and sound included in it. Now, there are a variety of different ways that Pansori is performed in the present day. The most traditional, I use quotation marks here, is the wanchang, which is the full performance from beginning to end, which, like I said, is anywhere from 3 to 8 hours. And during that time, it may well be that the drummer will be swapped out because they can't sit for that long, but the singer will continue. So it is really one singer performing for that long. In fact, the wanchang is quite a recent invention as well. It may have happened in the past, but it's become much more common with the development of the intangible heritage system as a way to also show faithfulness to the lineage in the present day. What is actually, we think, more common, more traditional in a way, is what's called tomaksori, where you just take one part from the full story and just tell that. Why was that possible? Because these stories were, like I said, very well-known folk tales, and you didn't actually need to hear the full story to know what was going on. So we think that very often what would happen is they just perform one of the highlights rather than the full story. Now, other things that have started to emerge from the beginning of the 20th century onwards, one thing is yeonchang, which is because a full story all by yourself is very hard work. So instead what you do is you do a yeonchang story where you take it in turns. It's like a relay, getting still through the whole story, but taking it in turns, still in a standard Pansori format with just one singer and one drummer. But then you get other more theatrical versions as well. So you can have panchang, where you split up the characters, but you don't have much in terms of props or scenery or anything. And then the full theatrical, basically Korean-style musical would be changeuk. And we have more of that. I could go into a lot, but I'm not going to here. Now, one thing that I want to introduce to you very much before I start singing is the importance of chrimse. Now, chrimse are shouts of encouragement. They are given for various reasons. One is if you really enjoy what you're seeing, kind of like if you shout bravo at the opera. You do it, but not just at the end of singing. You can do it whenever. If there is a moment that inspires you, you're allowed to react verbally. Usually a good moment is, I mentioned the palim earlier, that being the end of a musical phrase, you tend to have a little bit of a gap there where you can fit in your chrimse. The other moment might be, and this will be more common in a wanchang performance, a longer performance, when you see the singer struggling. Now, the audience is always very actively involved, you're trying to get through to the end together. And so if you see someone struggling, you give chimse, like, you can do this, we've got this, we'll get through this together. There's these two meanings. So it could be that they're very good or they're very bad. But either way, it's an encouraging way to talk to people, to talk to performers. And usually there's a variety of different words you can use. I'm going to say them once and you can say them back to me so that you can practice for when I'm singing. So one, 얼씨구. 좋다. 잘한다. So these are all just basically, it's great, it's good, you're doing great. I mean, if you speak Korean or even actually any other language, you want to get creative with those, you can as well. Often I find people struggle to get all the words in the short gaps, particularly if they're not used to the music. So I will introduce you to one chimse that always works. Oi! Oi! From the belly, oi! Very good, yes. So this is the one size fits all, can fit in just about anywhere. Chimse that I would recommend to you is the number one choice. The other thing to keep in mind with chimse is that they will be emotionally matching the performance as well. So if it's a really sad scene, oh, you know, someone's crying, you don't want to go 아이시고 in the middle. It breaks the atmosphere, right? So in those moments, you would tone it down. 아이시고, 그렇지. And then when it's more happy, when it's exciting, then you can let out your 아이시고. But ui fits anywhere. So when in doubt, I would recommend ui for you. Now, unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, I can't show you the video that I had with my teacher, Min Hae-sung, who is here today in the audience. Please watch her later, by the way. She will be doing chimse when I perform as well. So if you're not sure what to do, we have two Panzori experts at the front that you can follow. But there is another expert that you can see, which is the drummer. Now, the drummer is so important in Pansori that there is a saying, 일 고수 이명창. First comes the drummer, second comes the singer. Why? Because the drummer can make or break the performance. When it works really well, when the synergy is good, they will really uplift with their drumming. But if that isn't meshing, then it can be really, really difficult for the singer to continue performing. And the drummer is the number one chimse expert that you will see afterwards when Kim In-soo is performing, how he uses the chimse as well. So with that being said, I thought we might test this out a little bit. I'm going to present to you a short scene from Pansori, drawing the hare. Now in this scene, the Dragon King of the Sea has partied too hard and is ill. And he has been told that he needs to get the liver of a hare to feel better. Now the loyal terrapin stands forth and says, I will go to land. I have a long neck, I can see what I'm doing. I've got a shell to protect me. I will go, I will find a hare. Problem? I've only ever lived underwater. I don't know what a hare looks like. So they say, right, bring in the court painter to draw a picture of the hare so that he can look at that when he's on land to find him. So what I'll do now is I will sing for you. I think, hopefully, you will be able to understand enough from my performance. And let's give it a go.
왕에게 상소를 올리거날 왕이 받아보시고 칭찬하시되 네 중성은 지극하나 네가 세상을 나가면 인간의 징미가 된다하니 너를 보내고 내 어찌 안심할소니 별주부 여짜오되 소신이 비록 재주는 없사오나 강상에 높이 떠 망보기를 잘하오니 무슨 복대 있사오리까만 수국의 소생이라 토끼 얼굴을 모르니 화상이나 한 장 그려주시옵소서. 글랑은 그리하여라. 여봐라 화공을 불러라. 화공을 불려라. 화공을 불러드려 토끼화상을 그린다. 공정유리 정홍년 금수주파 거부견적 오징어로 먹자로 양두합피를 덤 엎으러 당창 전하
지,
전하 영산 정지강산 경계보던 눈 그리고
지,
동네 방장문 무정에 내 잘 봤던 고 그리고 단초짓 조엔가 향초꽃 따먹던 옷 그리고
아이씨,
무견행부 제제율제 소리 듣던 귀 그리고
지,
만악판 창화림 중펄펄 뛰던 발 그리고
좋지.
대안음도 설안 풍어하던 덜 그리고 독이난 쫑긋 누는 도리도리 허리난 듯 공댕이 뼈도 다 편청산이 우편은 독순기 서청산에 애굽은 장송 비늘어진 양속 들랑달랑 오락가락 앙그주춤 기난 토끼 아중 대열붓 그량이 사너리 발륜대 여서 더할 소냐 아나야따 별두부야 네가 가지고 나가거라.
아이씨.
Let me just have a quick sip of water there, and then I shall keep going. Normally you do either the singing or the talking, but doing both is always a bit entertaining. 감사합니다. So, you've seen the interplay that takes place with the drummer, with the audience. Thank you for your chimse, appreciate it. So, let's talk a bit more about the content. So I said there are 5 stories that are considered the core repertoire of what Pansori is, and these are considered to match what are called oryun, the 5 basic relationships in Confucian principles. Now there used to be more stories, but as Pansori became gentrified, as the nobility started to get interested, it got updated. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But basically the end result is this fits really nicely with these Confucian concepts, and so that is the repertoire that we have remained with. Now the story I just sang to you, Sugunga, is about the loyalty to your king. I mean, you can see in the loyal terrapin, right? We then have a brotherly love in Hungboga. We have friendship in Tokbyoka. This is particularly manly friendship, is the real focus of that story. Filial piety in Simchonga, that's going to be in the last song that I sing for you today. And then wifely fidelity is Chunyanga. It's the sort of Romeo and Juliet story of Korea. So, you look at that and you think surface level sounds great. In fact, if you look at the stories in a bit more detail, you find that they do actually subvert these same morals as well. If we take the example of Sugunga that we heard just now, you say it's about the loyalty of the subject to his king. And yes, the terrapin is incredibly loyal to his king. The question, though, arises here, is the king worth that loyalty? Because in the end, he's ill because he partied too hard. He spent all his money rebuilding a palace, slight sort of reference there to the whole rebuilding of Gyeongbokgung, which happened under the Prince Regent in the late 19th century as well. There's actually a little bit of sort of satire, social critique that is hidden within the stories of Pansori, once you dig into them. Things that subvert the morals where you think, actually that does not work in the way that Joseon society is constructed, and yet these stories are told. So that makes for a very interesting balance where we have surface level morality as opposed to underlying social critique. Now, how do the texts work? There's a two-level narrative structure here. Because, like I said, these stories are very well known. There are certain elements which are always fixed, certain things that will always be in all the stories. But then other parts there is a certain amount of individual variation depending on different singers, different schools. They have different slightly different ways of interpreting certain parts of the story, different focuses that they have in various parts. And so that is noticeable variation. And because, like I said, the stories are so well known, logical order, things like timelines, irrelevant. Because, again, everyone knows what's going to happen. So if you mix it up slightly, it's okay. It's not that important. Regarding the language, it is done in an archaic form of Jeolla province dialect. So for the English speakers amongst us, it would be sort of the equivalent of doing Shakespeare in a Scottish accent, in terms of distance from the sort of the standard language, as we were. So it's quite complicated. Some of the conventions of standard Korean remain, however, so superior sort of in social status or older characters will be talking about using honorifics, while lower status or younger people will be talked about using the casual language. One thing that's quite distinctive, usually when we think of telling stories, we tend to talk in the past tense, right? Once upon a time, there lived a da-da-da. Not so in Panzori. Here, you are really in the middle of the action. Most of the time, the story is being told in the present tense. So very different kind of way of approaching it. Now, there's also slight differences between the sung language and the spoken language. The songs tend to be a lot more poetic. They're in verse, a lot more Sino-Korean that's used, various allusions to classical texts of both Korean and Chinese literature, much more stylized language as well, as opposed to the narration, which tends to be a lot more colloquial, a lot closer to sort of standard speech. Now, I'm going to give you a quick run-through of the history, just so we know where we are. Now, the thing is, as with many folk arts in Korea, we don't know exactly where it comes from, because for much of Pansori's history, the upper classes considered it beneath them to care about Pansori, and in the end, it was the upper classes that wrote the records. So if nobody cares, nobody writes anything down, we don't know for sure. We do have certain links that we are aware of. So, for example, we know that many people of shamanic families end up becoming Pansori singers. And in fact, there are, for example, East Coast shamanic ritual has the story of Shimcheonga as well. We know that there would be sort of traveling players that also seem to have been involved in this. How exactly, we don't know. We do know that Pansori is definitely a distinct art form from your sort of your Namsadang travelers, from your shamanic stories, but there is clearly some kind of connection there. We just don't know 100% what it is. Now, yeah, I mean, just to tell the story of how much it was looked down on by the nobility. Yujin Han in the 18th century liked Pansori. Some people did actually, even amongst the nobility, like it even back then. He wrote the entire story of Chunyanga in Sino-Korean verse and was told off by his peers for doing so. It was at that point in time not acceptable for the nobility to show interest. However, this changes by the time we get to the mid to end 19th century. At this point, Pansori is very definitely established as a separate art form. And we have a particular person who becomes very influential. He's called Shin Jae-hyo. He's actually middle class-ish, but with social aspirations. He wants to rise. This is a time where Joseon society is no longer quite so rigid in the hierarchies. There is movement that is happening as society is moving towards a more marketized society, the Yangban are weakening. Lots of stuff that's happening. But Shin Jae-hyo sees the advantage of Pansori as a way to get in with the in-crowd. So what he does is he takes originally 12 stories, cuts out the dirty stories, and they were rather dirty if you look at some of the original texts, and he takes the 5 most classy stories and he makes them even more fancy. He adds a lot of these Sino-Korean allusions, bit more heavy on the Confucian morals to create a product that would appeal to the nobility. And it does. Even the Prince Regent, the Taewongun, was known as a famous patron of Pansori. The Pansori artists who were successful were showered with money, government posts, very, very active time. And that form of Pansori, as fiddled by Shin Jae-hyo, is what we see transmitted until today. Now, with the 20th century, we have challenges with Japanese colonialism, Korean War, modernization, bringing its challenges to Pansori. Also, the changing of audiences as theaters start to emerge. You have different art forms now competing for attention: theaters, cinemas. For a while, Pansori holds its own on the stage, has to start dealing with things like amplification, lighting, how to deal with a stage environment. Gradually, it does start to lose interest, so other adjacent genres are created. 가야금 평창, which is accompanying yourself on the 가야금 while singing Pansori pieces, or 창극, that I mentioned earlier. So the this musical art for more bells and whistles, more effects, more fancy staging to draw the audiences back. It's registered in pretty much the first batch of, at the time, called intangible cultural properties. It's now intangible heritage. And it's recognized by UNESCO as one of the masterpieces of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity in 2003. And so this is pretty much where we are now. It has a solid preservation basis, international promotion of Pansori as well, foreigners like me who are learning and performing it, and lots of fusion projects out there too, people fusing Pansori with pop music, or as I was discussing with our two excellencies at the front, the creation of new Pansori stories based on modern material, other books and so on. Now, how does one learn? I'm skipping all the YouTube videos because we were having technical difficulties, but I think we'll be fine. This is from the film 서편제, which is a very beautiful film if you ever get the chance to see it. Basically, it's still that. When I go and I learn from my teacher, I sit in front of her, she has the drum, says, follow, repeat after me. So she sings and I follow, sing and I follow, and then she adjusts what I've done wrong. And then I go away and I learn it, and then I come back and I do it again and she corrects me again, and so on and so forth. It is still mostly oral transmission. We do have texts, and I'll show you some in a minute. And recording technology has had a particularly important impact on this. So in the past, you would literally just learn in that moment as much as you could remember. So it would really be only 1 or 2 lines at most. Now, with recording technology, you can learn much more text because you can then go away and you can listen to it by yourself in order to prepare for the next time. So that is one big thing that's changed. Another big thing that's changed is you used to have what was called the 100일 공부, 100-day study. In fact, it was often much more that the singers, once they had learned everything they could from their teachers, would go off into nature. And they would sing and sing and sing until they created their own voice, their own style. Stories abound of blood spitting happening at these times. If that was happening, you were doing it wrong. It's a very, very dangerous thing. We do not try to make our throats bleed when we learn. We do, however, create scarring. The kind of singing is very tough on the throat. It's done with very much care that you don't over-scar your throat, but scarring can emerge, and that is what creates this distinctive husky tone that many Pansori singers have. In modern society, however, departing from society for months and years at a time isn't really quite as feasible. So these days what we have is what's called 상kom부. Now 상kom부, this is me in the mountains in Korean winter. It's usually in winter and summer you go from anywhere to from one week to 1 month and just sing all day, every day. And that's the way that we do still try and get that intensity of practice in within the realms of what modern society allows. We do have an exception. This is Bae-il-dong. He's a Pansori singer currently active. He went and lived on Jirisan for 7 years to develop his own sound. He is very much the exception rather than the rule, though. Okay, so I've already covered some of this. There's some debate as to how illiterate singers actually were, whether they would have been able to read or write. some debate there. But these days we have textbooks, not staff notation. It's very difficult to notate Pansori in staff notation. But instead you will have either plain text, where you scribble your own thing to figure out what you're doing, or box notation. I'll show you some examples, and then usually what you're doing, you listen back and create your scribbles afterwards. So this is the very first thing that I learned from my teacher, which is the beginning of 흥보가. And so there you can start to see the tones sort of giving me just reminders, basically, of what I need to do. This is an example of what the box notation looks like. This is for teaching Pansori, particularly to a Francophone audience. I'd be happy to talk about that aspect later, maybe during questions. This is what it looks like once you've been working on it for a while. So when I'm preparing for a performance, you'll start to get in gestures, things that I've done a couple of times now where it gets a bit scribbled. I mean, at this point I know the text. The text isn't the important thing anymore. It's the scribbles that become relevant now. But so this is what it can start to look at when you're learning. Okay, just a quick thing here. I'm keeping an eye on time. How do we judge skill in Pansori? Now, the term that you use for master singer is 명창. Now, these days, there are competitions that exist in Korea, and usually the President's Prize, that's the highest award for the arts that you can win in Korea. Once you've won that, you're a 명창. That is kind of the modern definition. But in the olden days, there were some competitions, not that many. The way that you showed your skill was by contributing to the art, by putting your stamp on it, either by creating a new scene, a new song, or by reinterpreting a song in a new way. So this is Im Bang-ul, one of the most famous Pansori singers of the late 19th, early 20th centuries. And he was particularly well known for his song Sukdemori, which is where the character Chunyang, she's in prison and she's very sad and her hair's all messed up because she's been tortured earlier. But his version has, just to sing you the beginning, goes,
쑥대머리 귀신 영융 정막 옥방을 and 찬자리에.
I haven't sung this in a while. I was going to use the videos. But particularly, Sukdemori is now sung in a variety of different ways. But if you hear 정막, that's kind of an instant clue, okay, we're listening to Im Bang-ul's version. And you can do this for most songs. If you know who's taught you, who's taught the people, through listening to the styles that they're doing, the different ornamentations, that will give you a clue as to the lineages, the tonem. And the padi is what we talk about, these lineages of transmission in Pansori. Okay, some of the musical characteristics. Now I will ask my drummer to come to the stage again. These are just basically to show how the drum and the singer work together. So we have a variety of different rhythms that accompany at varying speeds. This is from my PhD thesis, just to give you a general idea, following with the box notation so you can see the different rhythmic cycles. There's cycles. We don't have beats, we have cycles that tend to go through a process of increasing tension and release as they go. Now, I'll let you be looking at this while I demonstrate a little bit from each 장단 in turn so you can see the difference. We'll start with 진양 장단, the very slowest one. These are just to sort of give you a bit of a hold to try and see what's going on. But very slow, you will see, to really allow for a lot of melisma and development of the voice. 진양부터 할게요. So I'll demonstrate. This is cutting open a gourd. Okay? So.
시리랑 실건 당거 주소.
So that was just 2 cycles. So in that quite long time, it really takes a long time to go through one rhythmic cycle, and it's quite slow, you've seen. Now, if I up the tempo, 진양 for very sad or very majestic scenes, where you usually see. Next one, I'm going to cut a chord again, but this time in a slightly faster tempo. So in the story of Hungbo, there are 3 chords that are cut. You just listen to the first chord, the start of it. Now I'll sing you a little bit from the 3rd chord, where we're cutting it again, but in a slightly faster tempo. This is 중무리. Okay?
또 한 통을 들여놓고 시리렁 실건 돕지야.
So there you see the drums getting a little bit faster as we go. Same thing in different tempos. This happens sometime in Pansori. Now, just to move on to the next beat. So we had 중무리, which is a 12-beat rhythm. The emphasis being on the 9th beat, you can listen for. 중중무리, same basic structure, but a little bit faster and more of a rolly feel to it. Now, I was using this rhythmic cycle in the first song that I sang for you, which was the drawing of the hair. So I'll just show it to you again with the drums so you can pay attention to the rhythm this time. So.
화공을 불러라. 화공을 불러들여 토끼와 상을 그리운다.
So you can see it's a bit more kind of bouncy. You can get the shoulders involved if you want to at this point, right? Now next one, 자진머리. 자진 means like fast. We're getting a little bit faster. This one we're going to be hearing in the final song I'm going to sing. So this is often, you have a slightly slower 자진머리 that's used for lists when you're describing things. Look at this person, he's wearing this hat, this coat, these shoes, kind of thing. That's one example. The other is very speedy dynamic scenes. So that's what you'll be hearing a little bit later from the scene Blind Man Shim opens his eyes. So how that goes is
심하 거둥봐라 이말이 지득마득 산후추름을 거쳐버리고 붙인 앞으로
So that you see, it's getting faster still. And one very specific thing about 자진머리 is that you will often have these like the long, slow things that go over the top of this fast rhythm. And then the fun is it, hopefully we will achieve it later, of departing and then coming back together. That's the real thing that makes 자진머리 so particularly interesting and exciting and also challenging. Now, you thought that was fast? No, we can go faster still. 휘머리 is the very fastest 장단 that we have in Pansori. Now, I will give it a go for you. This is where Hungbo empties the chest. So this is, the first was already quite dynamic, active scenes. This is like complete chaos kind of scene. So here, Hungbo has got lots of rice and gold, and he keeps opening the chest, and more stuff comes out, more and more and more. This kind of scene. So, the speed of that is
흥부가 좋아라 그 흥부가 좋아라 그 개뚜짝을 떠люб고 남도로 서부.
So I'm not going to do more because it's a bit of a tongue twister, but so when we talk about rap, spitting beats, Pansori singers can do it as well. Yeah, very fast. The final one is a bit of a weird one, onmori. onmori, ot means kind of off balance, offbeat, and this one, all the others are regular patterns. This one isn't. It's made up of 10 beats that can be either 2-3, 2-3, 3-2, 3-2, 2-3, 3-2, or something. You're mixing 2s and 3s together. Now, probably the most famous one of this now is the tiger comes down. You may have heard of the song of the tiger before. I'll do a little bit for you.
범 내려온다 범이 내려온다 숭림 깊은 걸로 한진생 내려온다.
So you can see it's a little bit kind of off balance as it goes, and this is because it tends to be quite mysterious or impressive figures that we see here. Alrighty, I am going to move on. Okay. That was the rhythmic side. On the musical side, we have what are called 조. Now these are musical modes, But really, if you just talk about it in terms of the notes, you're missing out on the real point, which is that actually it's covering a lot more concepts. You have melodic types, moods, singing styles, ornamentation, just general vibes are actually more important in many ways than the notes that are involved in this. So usually we talk of the three main jo being these. We have Keumyeonjo. This is based on the folk songs of the Jeolla region. And it's got a pentatonic scale. The most representative notes of that, those three notes that you'll hear are sort of your basic foundational blocks for this. And so these are usually very sad scenes, melancholic, tragic scenes. Female characters are usually used in Keumyeonjo, also to express characters from the southwestern region. And then you can subdivide that into, you have Jin Keumyeonjo, which is really sobbing, Pyeong Keumyeonjo, which is a little bit lighter, and so on. On the other side, we have Ujo. Now, Ujo is actually based on the musical language of classical singing, classical Korean singing, which is called Jeonga. So it's much more upright, more very calm, often very powerful, and it expresses power through its music. So you will tend to see Ujo used for masculine figures, high-class figures, grand, majestic scenes. These are the kind of the moments where you have Ujo. And this is why I said that the musical notes are not that important. In fact, Pyeongjo technically uses the same scale as Ujo, but it has a very different feel. It's about sort of calm enjoyment kind of feeling for it. And then you've got various other jo called jo or te, depending on regional styles from the Gyeonggi region, from the eastern seaboard, and so on. Now I'm just going to show you, these are not official terms. Each Panzori singer, each Panzori teacher has their own way of describing these, but this is just to show the sort of variety of voices that a Pansori singer is supposed to be able to produce. And the vocal range is very wide. Now, male singers are usually supposed to sing up to 4.5 octaves. We don't have any bass, soprano, alto. We don't do any of that. You have to do everything. Women can't go quite as low as men, so they will only sing 3.5 octaves on average. Now, I'm going to do a little bit for this. I know that we also all want to have dinner, so I will zoom through this part. If we have time at the end, I will come back to my demonstration here. But mainly it was just to show you how much we can learn about Joseon dynasty life through Pansori. So, because it's epic poetry, I mean, if you've got up to 8 hours of story, you can't do that with just the bare bones. You need to add a lot of detail, and that's what I find particularly appealing about Pansori. You've got descriptions of characters, what are they wearing, what are they doing, where are they going, what does their house look like, when they move somewhere, what's the route that they're taking, if they're holding rituals, what are all the things that they are preparing. There's a lot of detail there, and that really helps us see Joseon dynasty not just as sort of history, but as lived experience. We can see the world through the eyes of the people that lived at that time. I'm going to skip this for now, but basically just to tell you what this scene is, it's one of the examples in Pansori where it's in Jajimori, so it's a listing of Hungbo's wife preparing food for her brother-in-law. And it goes through all the ingredients, all the things that she's producing at the end, because sound effects you have, she throws the meat into the frying pan and goes so you get the sound of the oil frying as well. One example of just how detail-rich these stories can be. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake there. Soldiers. One other story that I can't personally sing, but I find incredibly touching, and so I wanted to introduce to you, is from the Song of the Red Cliff. Now, this is a Pansori retelling, an exception. Amongst these 5 stories, the others are folk tales. This one is the only one that's based on an already existing novel, the Chinese classical novel, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Sanguo Yan-yi. And so, I mean, by the time this Pansori version came out, this had been around for some 300-ish years. Very well-known text. So people would have known the story. And so having it reinterpreted in this new medium was very interesting. What particularly is interesting, if the novel focuses on the exploits of the nobility, in the Pansori version, you get the perspective of the common people who have been dragged into war, whether they want to or not. Obviously, they don't want to, actually, right? So the most emblematic scene for this is what's called the Soldier's Sorrow. It's a whole series of stories where basically it's my life is worse than yours. No, my life is worse than yours. Kind of competition of who has it the worst. But the context for this is, I mean, there's been military maneuvering. You have two armies opposite each other on opposite sides of the river by the Red Cliff. Everyone knows it's going to be a battle the next day. Jojo, Cao Cao, is super confident. He's got the big army. He's chained all his ships together. He's showing off how powerful he is. He's so confident that he actually has his soldiers party the night before battle. And so you can see this is how it starts. You know, they all get very drunk, and as they get drunker and drunker, the feelings start to spill out of them. And so it becomes you listen to my sorrows, let me tell you how I suffer. And then he finishes, no, guys, you think he has it bad. Listen to my sorrows. And so on it goes. But it's very realistic stuff. So, you know, it's family life. The one guy is like, you know, I love my wife. We've been together for ages. We never had a baby. We really wanted a baby. We went, we prayed to the temples. She did all kinds of rituals. Finally, she got pregnant. We then learned how antenatal education was in Korea. That's a whole kind of thing. Then the baby's finally born. They never put the baby on the ground. It was so precious to them. These kind of stories. It's just showing family life. It's people who really care about their families. And that, I think, is just so impressive to look at that humanity. These are humans, just in the same way that we are humans. And so even if I cannot relate to wartime, I was not around in the you know, the 3 states period. I don't know about this personally, but this I can relate to. You know, this is, yeah. And then the next one, who's literally just got married. They're supposed to be in the honeymoon period, and he's been dragged off to war, and his wife is running out after him. What on bare feet as well? Like, what will I do without you? And he's like, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to come back. I don't want to be here. I want to be with my family. These kind of stories, I think, are just what really makes Pansori as a medium so incredibly powerful. Now, keeping an eye on time, yes, we are doing very well. So, just to summarize then, now, very often people think Pansori is difficult. I mean, I guess maybe I'm biased. I love Shakespeare as well. I think Shakespeare is difficult, but I was very lucky to have a teacher who taught me where all the dirty jokes were, which makes it a lot more approachable. So, you know, this archaic language, the extreme vocal production, it can be alienating, but if you know what's going on, once you start to dig in a bit, there's so many engaging characters, such beautiful language, such amazing poetry that's involved there as well. And for me, I think the most meaningful thing is that it is just this way of understanding how the people of the past lived. Okay, these are humans feeling human emotions. And even if I'm not Korean, I don't live in the Joseon dynasty, but that I can relate to. And so I really hope that with today's presentation, I've managed to transmit that to you somewhat as well. Now, because I don't want to keep you from your dinner, I will finish now with a final performance. I will need a sip to drink first. So this is from the story of Simcheonga. So basically here the story is we have blind man Sim. He's called Simbongsa. He is blind. He used to go around begging. His daughter would beg for him. He ended up, through a series of unfortunate events, promising 300 bags of rice to a Buddhist temple, after which they said that he would then regain his sight. Only problem, he doesn't have 300 bags of rice. Now, if you lie to Buddha, you will not only end up blind, which he already was, but crippled as well. So his daughter, Simcheong, sells herself to some sailors as a human sacrifice in order to get these bags of rice to help her father finally see again. Now, the Dragon King is so impressed by her filial piety that he brings her back. She gets brought back to land in a blossom. The novels say it's a lotus flower. It's never actually specified in the Pansori story. And the emperor of the land is given this blossom, first of all, and oh, lo and behold, this beautiful woman comes out. So he marries her, as you do. So as the empress of the land, she wants to reunite with her father. She holds a banquet for all the blind people in the land. And it's been going for several days. He still hasn't shown up. Finally, because he's once again encountered another series of unfortunate events, blind man Shim arrives at the palace, and they see him, they find him, he thinks, oh God, they found out that I let my daughter sell herself, I'm going to be punished. But actually, obviously, it's to reunite him with his daughter, and then the shock of hearing first his daughter again is so great that it opens not only his eyes, but the eyes of all the blind people in the kingdom as well. So, I will do a little bit of that reunion scene, and we will finish the presentation for today.
그때요 수백 명 봉사들이 골문 안에 들어가 앉았을 때 신봉사는 제일 말석 참여하였겠다. 봉사의 성명을 차례로 물어갈 때 신봉사 앞에 당도하여 이봉사 성명이 무엇이요? 예, 나는 심학규요. 신명인 여기 계시다. 신봉사를 메시고 별궁에 들어가니 신봉사는 일양 죄가 있난지라. 아이고 헛되려고 이러시오. 허허 이놈 용케 죽을 때 잘 찾아 들어왔다. 내궁에 들으니 그때요 심항우는 언간 용궁에 3년이 되었고 신봉사는 딸 생각에 어찌 울고 세월을 보냈던지 더욱 백수되었구나. 심항우 물으시되 가주 성명이 무엇이며 찾아 있는가 물어보아라. 신봉사가 저자 말을 듣더니 먼 눈에서 눈물이 뚝뚝뚝뚝 떨어지며 아들이다. 소맹이 아들이다. 소맹이 사업기난 황주 도하 동이고 톱고 성명은 심막교요. 청년 3월 달을 사우다 할로 상차고 어미든 딸 자식을 강보에 싸서 안고 이 집 차집 다니면서 공양자도 먹여 개우 길러내요. 15세가 되었으되 이름은 심청기요. 효성기 출전하여 그 애가 법을 빌어 근근 토생지대 갈 때 우연한 중이 찾아왔어. 공양이 300석을 봉은사로 시주하면 소맹이 눈을 뜬다하니 효성기는 딸 자식이 남경장사 선인들께 300석의 몸이 발려 인당수 재수로 죽은 지가 3년이야. 눈도 뜨지 못하고 자식 팔아 먹은 놈을 살려둬. 때에서 당장의 목숨을 끊어줘. 심하고 거둥 마라. 이 말이 지든 나듯 산후 주름을 거쳐버리고 부친 앞으로 우르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르르 신봉사 이 말을 듣고 먼 눈이 번뜩거리며 누가 날 다려 아버지라고 하여 나는 아들도 없고 딸도 없어 아버지라니 누구야 남동녀에 따라 나 물에 빠져 죽은 지가 우금 3년인데 아버지라니 이것이 웬 말이야 아이고 아버지 여태 돈을 못 드셨소 아버지 눈을 떠서 어서 저를 보옵소서 인당수 빠져 죽은 불효야식 심청이가 살아서 여기 왔소 아버지 눈을 떠서 어서 저를 보옵소서 신봉사 이 말을 듣고 먼 눈이 번뜩거리며 헤이 이것이 웬 말이냐 내 가족아 수금을 들어왔느냐 내가 지금 꼬마을 구느냐 이것이 참말이냐 적고 없는 내 딸 심청 여기가 어디라고 살아다니 웬 말이냐 내 딸이면 어디 보자 아이고 갑가보여라 내가 눈이 있어야 보제 어디 내 딸 좀 보자 두 눈을 꿈적꿈적 거리더니 눈을 번쩍 떴구나
Thank you once again, Doctor, for your illuminating talk and emotion-provoking stages. You've shown us how Pansori beautifully weaves music, story, and emotion. As a matter of fact, my heart still beats a little faster than usual from the song of Simcheong. Thank you very much. And another thank you for Mr. Kim In-soo, master drummer and designated transmitter of Seoul Intangible Heritage. Thank you very much.